The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples set out for the villages of Caesarea Philippi. Along the way, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" They said in reply, "John the Baptist, others, Elijah, still others, one of the prophets." And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter said to him in reply, "You are the Christ." Then he warned them not to tell anyone about him. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer greatly and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke this openly. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. At this he turned around, and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and he said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." He summoned the crowd, and with his disciples he said to them, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny his very self. Take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it." The gospel of the Lord. This is the first time I've preached to you since I got back from Lake George, New York, our Paulist retreat center up in upstate New York. And I have a wood shop there, and I want to show you something that I made while I was at my wood shop. And I'm a little, this is the bowl that I made. It's made of walnut wood. I'm a little anxious to show this to you because we have an expert wood turner right here in the front row, Fred Bivens. So I'm going to start by giving it to him. And I'm going to ask you to just pass it through the congregation. Now be really careful because this is my baby. So don't drop it. But I want to show you just a little bit about it first. It has a crack here. The wood was cracked, but I made the bowl anyway. And I was looking online for advice about that, and who should pop up but Fred Bivens? How to handle a crack in a piece of wood. So this is walnut tree that I cut down with a friend of mine 30 years ago. Been saving the wood and doing various projects, and this was made on the wood lathe. I did this on the wood lathe. So I'm going to pass it through the congregation. Take it, feel it, pass it on. It's burn. I think there we go. This is not a collection basket, but feel free if you want to. So I want to assure you there's more chips of wood and dust on the floor than there is left in that piece of wood. The process is of cutting away to reveal this wood. Now, on the bottom, it's kind of rough. That's the way God left it. But the smooth part is the way I left it. The process of working with these machines is really like going into battle because, these machines could rip you apart. And so you have to think of every possible way that machine could get you. The bandsaw, the circular saw, the planer, joiner, the lathe, the wood shaper, all these machines that this friend of mine and I work with are all very dangerous machines. So you have to go into there with the mentality of knowing every way it can get you and being very careful. It's a work of patience. It takes time. As I said, there's a lot of cutting away of chips and of sawdust that go and sanding and polishing till you get the finished product. Now this is the way I think of Jesus and his disciples. There was a lot of cutting away. There was a lot of chipping. They didn't know the pruning that would take place in their lives, being disciples of Christ. And today they rebelled. Peter rebels against the suffering that Jesus is proposing to them. He says the Son of Man will suffer for 3 days, for he will suffer at the hands of the elders. And thank you very much. That was a very good handoff there. He will suffer at the hand of the elders. And Peter turns to rebuke him, and he says, no, Lord, that will not happen to you. Why did Peter say that? He said that because there was a common conception of the Messiah at the time of Jesus. The Jewish community thought in terms of, oh, this is going to be a successor to Moses, who brought us into the land, promised land. But Moses didn't himself go into the promised land. So it's going to be a successor to Moses. Or it's going to be a successor to King David, who extended the territory of Israel as far as any other king had extended it, from Dan to Beersheba. And they thought, well, it's going to be a powerful Messiah who's going to extend our land and kick out the Romans and so forth. And that's what they had in their mind. And so then when they were following Jesus and he was doing these miracles and his teachings and so forth, they thought, this is the one. This is the one that's going to lead us to freedom. They didn't understand what that meant. But Jesus had a different scripture in mind. He had in mind the scripture of Isaiah the prophet that we heard in our first reading today. That one man would suffer for the many, that he would accept the buffets and the spitting, he would allow himself to be punished for the people, and he would give his life for the many. That's the scripture that he had in mind. And it says in today's first reading, I have set my face like flint. I've set my direction, and I'm going to go there regardless of what happens. So Jesus, it's a journey story today as the disciples are proceeding first to Caesarea Philippi in the north, territory under the control of one of the tetrarchs of Herod, and then they will turn and they will move south towards Jerusalem, where he will confront his enemies. And he knows that it will take patience and time. This is one of those things in life. It takes patience and time to get to the kind of person that we want to be in life. Jesus is shaping his disciples. He shapes them through the difficulties that they go through, and he helps them to understand what's happening. Now, a good friend of mine in Portland, Oregon, is a person that hears voices. He struggles with this. He hears machine sounds in his hands. It's terribly distracting to him to have these voices, and they're tearing him down all the time. And he said to me, do you think that I'm crazy? And I said, I think that you are in a battle. I think that you are in a battle for your soul. He says, well, these voices say to me, they say to God that I don't have a soul. They've taken away my soul. I struggle. I don't feel I have a soul. And I said to him, Jim, there is nobody that is more welcoming and hospitable despite all that's going on in your head. You have a soul. You are a very kind and loving person. You're caring. You're hospitable. He says, you know what? I like you because you have mental illness too. And I said, it's right. I have bipolar, which I struggle with. It's a hard thing to fall asleep at night. Something to struggle with. Well, we all have something to struggle with. We all have something to be patient with as our lives are developing. And that is where the beauty comes. The scraping, the chipping away, the sanding, the polishing, all that happens in our life. That takes patience. It's a battle. Jesus turns to his best friend and says, you are Satan. What does he mean by that? He had faced Satan in the desert, and Satan wanted him to take the easy way out. Do this, and bow down to me, and you will have all these great things in your life. Jesus refused Satan, and now here comes the temptation again, coming from his best friend, saying to him, take the easy way out, Lord. You don't need all that suffering. You don't need all that scraping and pounding and scourging that you're going to receive. No. You must take the easy way out. Use power instead of mercy. By patient endurance, we will save our lives. So why do you stay Catholic? Why do we stay Catholic in the midst of all this? People say to us, are you crazy with all that going on? Why do you stay Catholic? Well, I think first of all is to know that the voices are being heard. The victims are speaking out, that there's a forum for them to speak. Secondly, if you look in our bulletin today, you'll see a wonderful letter, and it's the process that the church is going through. Beginning to bring to accountability, providing processes for all this to come out, to get lay oversight, to make sure that the processes are followed to reveal and to change the structure, to change the clericalism of our church. And thirdly, because our call, our mission is from Jesus Christ, and each one of us has a purpose. Each one of us has a goal that God has given to us. And it's going to require some suffering. It's going to require some patience. It's going to require time. But each one of us has a purpose. That's why we stay. That's why I say Catholic. It's hard to listen to what's going on, to see the struggles, and to go, oh, is this ever going to end, Lord? And to know, well, there's even more things coming out. It's hard to maintain to maintain your pride, your sense of direction, your sense that it's going to be okay in the long run, because God is with us. And God has a plan for each one of our lives. It says in the first reading that we set our face like flint. We have a direction to go with Jesus. And it says in the second reading, continue to do the good works. If you have faith, then you have good works. And we got to do those good works because that's what makes our faith real. And we know that as Catholics, that we have good works. Through our works, through setting our face like flint, through being patient through the trials and the struggles, we're going to shine through all that buffeting. And it takes time, but we are patient. And, well, I would say we're not patient with the way things are, but we're patient that our voices will be heard, that change will take place, that the Lord is with us, and that's our real purpose. And I wanted to end with something a little bit uplifting after going through all that. Something that takes time is raising children. And I think of the rabbi in Anatevka, which we know he sang about. Who is this little girl I carried? Who is the little boy at play? I don't remember growing older. When did they? When did she get to be a beauty? When did he grow to be so tall? Wasn't it yesterday when they were small? Sing with me. Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly flow the days. Seedlings turn overnight to sunflowers, blossoming even as we gaze. Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly flow the years. See one season following another, laden with happiness and tears. Patience is worth it. It takes time, it takes struggle, it takes patience, but we're going to get there.